Thank you everyone for coming today. I'm here today as a representative for a Canadian charitable organization founded by my parents in 2005. The International Rights of Children Society, or IROCS, has a mandate to raise awareness of the issues surrounding parental child abduction. One of our initiatives has been to support the making of the film you just saw. Our hope is, through that, our combined efforts, fewer children might suffer the abuse of parental abduction. In cases of international parental abduction, the abducting parent often has strong family ties to another country and feels alienated from the legal system here in North America. Most reported international parental abductions occur after the breakdown of a bicultural marriage. Children from bicultural or dual heritage families are blessed with a richness of family culture and tradition. Ideally, with support from both parents and their extended families, dual heritage children will develop a strong, positive identity. Being torn away and completely cut off from one of their parents, their home, their extended family, effectively half of their identity, has devastating consequences. Issues of trust, confidence, security, and well-being are all threatened. Left behind parents agonize over the psychological well-being and care of their children. Cousins and former classmates worry about a world in which they can lose someone that they love so completely. Everyone feels a void and a devastating sense of injustice. We can only wonder what the abducted children feel. The literature regarding the psychological effects of parental abduction on children is horrific for left-behind parents helpless to retrieve their children. Dr. Nancy Faulkner, who presented a paper entitled "Parental Abduction is Child Abuse" to the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child in 1999, states that depending on the case and the severity of alienation and masquerading inflicted on the child, effects can range from depression and loss of community and trust to more profound disorders, including stress and anxiety disorders and fear of abandonment, which can plague a child long into adulthood. Faulkner quotes Clower and Rivlin. As adults, many victims of bitter custody battles who have been permanently removed from a target parent, whisked away to a new town and given a new identity, still long to be reunited with the lost parent. The loss cannot be undone. Childhood cannot be recaptured. Gone forever is that sense of history, intimacy, lost input of values and morals, self-awareness through knowing one's beginnings, love, contact with extended family, and much more. Virtually no child possesses the ability to protect him or herself against such an undignified and total loss. The international community regards the rights of the child to know both parents as universal. Cultural norms cannot be used as justification for not meeting standards reached by international consensus. We hope that this film will raise awareness of the damage caused by international parental child abduction and will help to change the focus of discussion to the rights of the children and the need to protect them from this abuse. Thank you.
I'll make a quick statement. I'll make a quick statement, and then we can so we can get on to the questions and answers. I'd really like to thank everyone who traveled here today, but mostly I want to thank Matt and David, who's not here today, for selflessly putting their heart and soul into this project. Throughout nearly 4 years, I have had the privilege of knowing them, and they have dedicated themselves not just to documenting this human rights tragedy, but also to helping the entire community of parents affected by this. For both Matt and David, the telling of our stories became more than just a project. It became a personal mission. They, in fact, became one with the entire Left Behind parent community. During my trip to Japan in 2009, David was instrumental in helping me navigate the path to see Erica, even if it was just for a brief moment. Again, after the earthquake and tsunami this past spring, David went out of his way to help me and my wife Linda when we traveled to Japan. David and Matt asked nothing in return. They simply asked to document the tragedy that had befallen us so that they could then tell the world about it through their film. And so Matt and David, on behalf of all of us, thank you so much. I would also like to thank Congressman Smith and his dedicated staff for providing the opportunity today to premiere this film here in our nation's capital at the seat of U.S. power and influence. We hope this film not only raises awareness, but also spurs our leaders in Congress into action, not only in regard to Japan, but to the plight of thousands of American citizens abducted to any overseas nation and shut off from a loving parent. As you saw in the film, 2 years ago I testified here at Congress regarding the abduction of my daughter Erica. There have been many such hearings about child abduction throughout the years in Congress. At one such hearing, the chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee said, "Parents have reported to me the failure by the United States to initiate vigorous diplomatic and law enforcement tools seeking the return of their children. These parents report a sense of frustration, and I can understand that, with the obviously low priority placed on the return of abducted children compared to other diplomatic relations." At the same hearing, the ranking member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee stated, "The act of taking a child in violation of a custodial order is a heinous crime, which is extremely heart-wrenching for the parent left behind and for the child or children affected." Those statements were made in 1998, with the last statement being made by then Senator Joseph Biden. Those statements are now 13 years old, and yet change has been very slow. As Mr. Bernie Aronson, former Assistant Secretary of State, summarized so well when he also testified before Congress, all we have to show for it are musty hearing records and hopes that were raised but never fulfilled. Why does Japan continue to act in bad faith? Because they can. There are no consequences for Japan or other nations who refuse to return children. 6 months ago, the Japanese government announced their intention to sign the Hague Convention. Since that time, there have been dozens more children abducted to Japan, and since that time, there have been no children returned from Japan. Benjamin Franklin said, "Never confuse motion with action." In recent years, we have witnessed a lot of motion here in Congress and throughout the U.S. government on this issue, but we have yet to see any real action, the kind of action that would result in the return of our children. Congressman Smith is trying to change this. A bill he introduced this year, H.R. 1940, provides the government with the tools required to impose consequences on nations who refuse to return children. I ask everybody here to support this important bill. The time for action is now. Because let me tell you, as a parent of a child who is growing every day, time is not on my side, and it's not on our side. So that's all I have to say, and get to the questions and answers, but thank you very much.
I just have a small comment about our hope for the film. David and I have two main goals for it, and one of them is really to cause change in Japan, because as many of you may know, that it's very difficult to ask a Japanese police officer to walk into a Japanese home and to take a child from a loving parent. It just doesn't happen in that country. And we don't want that necessarily to happen, but we're hoping that our film can help shift attitudes there and cultural norms and the mentality, so that I think they come to understand that separation of a parent and child is detrimental to the child and to the parent, but mostly to the child. So that's what the movie's intended for. The other reason is also to create awareness of the issue to the international group, to people like the United States government and to governments in Europe and everywhere else in Asia about the system in Japan, so that pressure can be put on Japan. One thing you know about Japan is they are resistant to change, but on the other hand, they are very sensitive to the opinions of others. And I think the more criticism or discussion we can create about this topic in other countries, they will definitely pay attention. So that's the goal for the film. Anyway, if you have any questions for either me or for Paul or Murray, please ask. Very loudly. Walter?
Yeah, I just want to thank all the participants that were in the movie, because I really appreciate how hard it would be to let the camera come into the private moments like that in your life. And I want to thank both Mary and Paul for allowing this to be shown about their lives. It's hard to do that, to open up your whole private life like that. And but the question, I was just curious about the movie itself. What is the next step now with this movie, and what can people like us in the audience do to help get it seen by people who might be able to create some change? We really need someone like Hillary Clinton or people like that to see this movie. and it would perhaps spark some changes. And I was just wondering if you have any recommendations what we should do and what the next step is with this movie.
Well, what we have done is we just applied to 2 festivals, Berlin, and I'm forgetting the other one, but in the next 3 months we're applying to 15 more. We've met with the consultant about this, and really that's the start. You build up a reputation, and I think the film stands alone. I feel, at least in the film waking world I live in Los Angeles, I've been told it's a good view. So I'm hopeful that you get to people's heads, to their hearts, that we've plucked some heartstrings with it, and that will expand. But we'll start with film festivals, and from there we're going to try to get distribution through either television, possibly theatrically. But what people can do for the film, besides donating money, is to write now to these film festivals we're applying to. And if you, I should have a sign-up sheet, but I can let you know where we're applying, and you can just send them a little note that, particularly if you live close to that particular festival, let them know you're interested in seeing it, and the people you know are interested in seeing it, and you're interested in the issue. Those are really the 2 things right now that can be done. Anyone else? Oh, please.
I'm just wondering if people are interested in discussing the content of the film just a tiny bit.
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Any question?
I also really appreciated it, really enjoyed it. I found it very emotionally affecting. I was just a couple of thoughts about it as I was watching. One was, and I just wonder if other people would agree with me on this. One was I was thinking about the sort of cultural politics just a little bit, which are a very sensitive issue. And I guess what I was thinking was that the behaviors of people who are taking their children in this way, it can be very easy to fall into thinking of them as, well, this person's crazy, this person's doesn't care about their children, look at this horrible thing that they've done, and I have those feelings. This is my son. So I certainly understand those feelings. But it also seems very important to emphasize that it's the social structure, that it's the legal structure that elicits this behavior out of people by making it possible that it turns people in this direction because, well, it's one of the routes that you can take. And by doing, there was one person who said it's an outgrowth of, are we living in a kind of feudalism, And I thought, actually, no, they're living in a modern state, which allows this kind of process to take place and offers a route by which it can take place, and therefore people turn to it. Not necessarily, if you understand what I mean.
So your question is, did we present the cultural issues enough in the film? Or you feel?
I'm just highlighting that it's culturalized politics, that it's a state form, that the state allows this, and the culture kind of follows where the state goes. That's just kind of a we
had thought of putting it in historical context. Actually, the film is called From the Shadows because in the 1950s there was a case where a Japanese judge told a woman, in this case it was a woman who couldn't see her son, that she should she should pray from the shadows for the well-being of her child. And particularly 80 years ago, or I'm not quite sure the numbers, but many years ago, it was mostly men's families who got the children. And now, as you saw from the Japanese news report, actually it's 83% that the mother's side gets the kids.
And that's only since the 70s.
Yeah.
That's only in recent.
Well, no, before that, always the father's side got it most of the time. But anyway, we did our best, and Federici is kind of our voice from Japan. So.
Can I make just one more point?
We'll come back to you. Let me let someone else who's had their hand up over here.
Oh, well, first, I think the film is really great. It's really hard to watch. I was crying throughout the whole movie because I personally know my husband is also left behind here. My question is more like in the future, or I was wondering if we're gonna do something, or you're gonna have like a follow-up film or something like that to talk to
I would say that's highly unlikely right now. But, that would be great. I would love to do that. I would love to do some kind of connection. But right now we're in the fledgling state of getting the film out into the world, and we need the support like we've got here. We need this room to be filled, and I guarantee you, if we had gotten into Sundance last year, this room would be filled. People would come. They don't even know what the top is, but they'd be in the seats.
I actually recently, last year I attended the D.C. Asian Film Festival, and I was a volunteer. And one of the biggest draw for audiences to go was actually a really political film about Taiwan. And I was thinking maybe that might be a good film festival.
Sure.
And I know the Asian Film Festival, I guess the chairperson or maybe.
Thank you very much. Let's talk. Please join us. Go ahead.
One thing I observed from my perspective of Matt and David making the film was, and when you asked about a follow-up film, this film, the making of it went on a very long time because world events kept building related to this issue as they were making it. So they were thinking about wrapping up at a certain point, and then the whole thing happened with Christopher Savoy that brought this to the front line, to the headlines of major networks, and then I decided to go to Japan as a result, so they extended it further. So it was a long process in the making because there was always something new coming out. Then HRS 1326 got passed, so they wanted to cover that and get that into the film, and so they had to find a point to sort of finally cut it off after about 4 years, I think.
Yes, exactly. Actually 5 years.
5 years.
But all right. Anyone else?
Matt, I got a question. I obviously know the story very well of being a left behind parent dealing with this crap for 2, 3 years now, whatever it is. Why did you and David decide to make this film? It's obviously very depressing. I had a very hard time watching the film. I live this every day. You could call this a never-ending story. To be a little cynical, I think we could be here in 10 years. We could have another 25 parents that have children abducted to Japan. Say we got Eric and Murray's kids. It never ends. So what made you actually choose this topic?
Well, actually, David found an article in the Metropolis magazine in Japan, actually in 2006, and it was about Murray's case. It was called Think of the Children. And at the time, I was married to it. Well, I still am married to it, happily married to a Japanese woman, and so is David. And I had just had my first and only son, and it touched me. The story did, and I thought, well, let's dig a little deeper about this before we decide to do anything. And we contacted Murray, and we found out more about his story. And I have a strong connections in Japan. I lived there for 5.5 years. David's been there 20 years. His dad's in the audience tonight too, like 20. He's been there about 20 years. and he knows it very well. And so we have this strong connection, and we find Japan to be this very beautiful place and very well run. Everything's on time. Everything's clean. You're reliable. You call the cable man, and he is there the minute he says he's going to be there. And when we read the story, we were just stunned that this kind of thing could exist. And then once we dug deeper, we felt, well, we should. There's many films we can make about the good side of Japan. Unfortunately, I guess we chose to make this darker side, but it definitely connected with me and David, and so that's why we chose it. My hope, again, is that I realize there's a lot of people in the audience who are family and friends of left behind parents. My hope is this audience is filled, and most of these people just don't know. And those are the people, I think, who will be able to watch the film and will get incredibly upset and angry. And if you can make them cry, because I know left behind parents and family and friendly men, this movie is incredibly emotional, and it's hard to watch, I'm sure, for you. But getting to those people is key because most of the world is not left behind parents. So that's my hope that we get this, you know, in 6 months' time, this room is full. So, yeah, anyway, does that answer the question?
That's sort of the point that I was wanting to relate to partly, if it's okay if I just make one more remark, which is that among Japanese people, there's 2.5 million or 2.2 million children who've been separated from their parents. And I think, and 4,000, and the scale of the problem, the magnitude of the problem, is something which needs to be, I think, emphasized more generally because even Congressman Smith, when he was speaking in the film, and he is our champion and our advocate, he was saying, what did he say? So there was 100 and something kids, and the truth is that no one's really counting, and you can estimate there are as many as 4,000 children since 1992 who have been separated from their parents from the United States, and over 2 million in Japan. And part of the reason for that is this is part of why we so much need to put pressure on our State Department and ask that somehow I don't know how to say this, so that these numbers continue to spread, and they're not adequate, I think, to catch the attention that should be caught, because human rights organizations would pay a lot more attention to this issue if they knew truly how large scale the problem is, I believe.
I've been going through this for 8 years, and one thing I've noticed a lot of times is that when you say numbers, whether it's 150 or 250 or 1,250 or 2,250, it doesn't resonate with people. So really, I think Matt and David have done an extremely great service by personalizing it, because when 4 cases out of those 2,000 cases are brought home and personalized, it means a whole lot more than throwing out statistics. And so we've been going through this, our group, for years with what are the real numbers and how much are they really, and it is important. It is important but at the same time, I just want to thank Matt and David for taking those numbers and actually personalizing them, because I think that really, I'll just give you an example. I post a lot of stuff on Facebook, and when it's something about some government action, oh, this bill got passed or that bill got passed, I'll get 5, 10 people that like it. But when I post that it's Erica's birthday, I'll get 50 comments or 100 comments from people, and even more people. So it's when you personalize it, it has a great impact. And I think that's one of the great things about this film.
Before we get too much further, I want to give Regan's grandmother, who's joined us this evening, a moment to speak.
I also want to thank Matt and David for bringing to light something possibly that can be done. The 2 children that you saw to first further personalize this, that you saw at the beginning of the film, the little girl and her little brother in the little car right at the beginning, are my great-grandchildren. Their mother is my grandchild. And 2 brothers and 1 sister of Regan's father is here today. So there's 2 of her uncles and their wives, and our daughter, who is their aunt, is Regan's aunt. And I'm saying all that to have you realize that it isn't just the parents. When a child is taken out of a family and taken away from their home, taken away from their mother, in our case, it's heart-ripping for the entire family. And you seem to be rather helpless in what you can do about it, because you begin reading about it, and you read well, there are no successes to read about getting the children returned. We were asked to write letters to whom it may concern that our granddaughter and the woman that accompanied the granddaughter was her mother, that you saw, the dark-haired lady that was with them. And we wrote letters to appeal to whomever, whatever official that our granddaughter would need to contact over there. And I'm not going to read you any of them, but there were many letters that went out from the family. I have here one that's particularly poignant to me, because this was from my husband, who died about 2 years ago, but his very fervent appeal for us to be able to bring those 2 little children back to America. They were born here, they're American citizens, as is my granddaughter, and generations before them. And I guess my point is that it's heart-ripping to so many people. And for every one of us that are here today, there are other children and relatives that this was very, very painful for. And now one of my youngest son, we have 4 sons and a daughter, is here. I'd like him to say something to you. Thank you very much.
My name is Stephen Hayden. I'm Regan's uncle. Just on behalf of the entire family, we just want to thank you for making the film. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the other parents that didn't have. You haven't had the good fortune that Regan has had, and so we will be with you in the struggle and the fight ahead. Just one last note. It's interesting because before we were coming to this, Regan contacted us, and she was concerned that the film would show that she had to be dishonest. I mean, she had to lie to Shuta, and she had to be dishonest with Shuta in order to get her children back. And it's just interesting because the family was like, you shouldn't feel bad about that. You did what you had to do. Obviously, the system is broken. If in order to get the success or in order to get justice and fairness, that's the route that you have to take. So again, on behalf of the entire family, we appreciate your project.
So often when I get through speaking, I wish that I could give a postscript, and I'm just going to take the opportunity today. I appreciate so much that the bills being named and numbered that are in Congressman Smith's, that are obtainable, that we can write directly to him and show support for that these bills be concerned and brought to the attention. It looks to me like perhaps to the attention of the State Department strongly to get a treaty with Japan or something. It gives to me a way that maybe something could be done to this, and it looks like I just want to praise Matt and David for making this much information, because I'm sure everyone here has a large number of friends that have suffered through our problem with us. Thank you very much.
I would just like to thank all the families and friends of the people in the film, but also we shot many more than we actually used. And to let us into your life during such a traumatic time is a very difficult thing. It was very difficult for me to ask that. I felt weird, but I think the product. I think this is a useful tool now to get the word out. And I just want to thank all the Paul and Murray and Regan and Rena Federici and Paul Long, and then all the other parents who allowed us to interview them. And also there were children. There were 4 abducted children that we were able to interview. So just I want to thank them.
Anyone who'd like to continue the discussion is welcome to join the producers and families at Tortilla Coast. You'll be meeting immediately afterwards there, I'm assuming. And
2 blocks away.
2 blocks away, if anybody needs directions, I can point you in the right direction. It is within walking distance. And I'd just like to say, as I was watching the film, I thought of all the things that have happened. Not that many things, but some significant things have happened since then. We've had the recent news that the president raised the issue with the new prime minister just this last September in New York, and the current cases, as well as the Hague Convention. And I've only been working this issue for 2 years. You all are the experts, but I am hopeful for the changes that I have seen. Little changes, but they are changes. They're small steps of progress, and I'm very hopeful that years from now, and not too long from now, this will be an excellent historical piece of the way things used to be, and that we'll all be able to celebrate that. So again, thank you all for coming this evening, and please join us at Tortilla Coast.